In today's Leeds news, awards for Leeds duo, Dan James on why he stayed, Llorente permanent exit on the cards, Leeds attempt to land head of recruitment, and January plans are lined out. Morning folks, Jay here on the 8th of December, Friday, with your Leeds United news day before the game against Blackburn this weekend. We did do a slight podcast last night with Joe Wayman from Just Joe Show and Lucky Leeds as well, looking ahead to the game. That match preview podcast is available on the channel as well. You can go check that out. We'll crack on with the news and we'll start off with awards, and congratulations to Daniel Farke on picking up the November EFL Championship Manager of the Month award. He leads the form side in the championship over the course of November and into December, so it's hardly surprising that Farke did get the award, but it's great to see him getting recognition for doing a really good job at Leeds so far, as the gap between Leeds and the top two continues to close and narrow into a busy Christmas period that could see that gap come up all the way back down, and a big period in January when Leeds will have no players at the African Nations Cup, and their competitors in the top two will have players at the African Nations Cup as well, which will weaken their squads slightly, which could help Leeds again. So it'll be two huge big months for Daniel Farke, but congratulations to him on winning that award. Summerville has also picked up an award. He is the Leeds United Player of the Month for the second month after picking up the Socios Leeds United Player of the Month award, and again a player that's been in absolutely exceptional form. We talked about him an awful lot last night and where his ceiling is and how much he's adapted over the last couple of years, from the player that did have all the skill but wouldn't do the defensive work, into a player that's doing both sides of the game very well right now and having a huge impact on Leeds season. So yeah, you can check that out again if you want to. Moving on, some of the players that are having an impact this season, and Dan James, well, about why he stayed at the club. And James was a player that was widely expected to leave Leeds United during the summer. After having a loan spell away from Leeds all last season at Fulham, it was widely expected that he would be part of Leeds' plans and would move on in the summer. However, he has stayed and has become a very effective and important part of Daniel Farke's system this season. Daniel James has logged 6 goals and 4 assists so far this campaign and is on a very good scoring run at the moment. Dan James said about Farke that when he came back to Leeds a little bit late in pre-season because he was at international football, that Daniel Farke sat down with him, laid out the plan, and basically said he wanted James as part of it and he wanted James to stay here. James said that he said the exact same thing, that he wanted to stay at Leeds United. Given the summer that Leeds had with a ton of players trying to force their way out of the club, having a player that has committed himself and wants to stay at Leeds to help Leeds get promoted again is great to see as well. And in a time where players want to come to Leeds because they wanted to play Premier League football last year, more so than necessarily wanting to play for Leeds, having a player that wants to play for Leeds and have the desire to play for Leeds is a fantastic thing to have as well. So it's great to see that. Long may it continue. I hope the season continues to go from strength to strength. He's having an incredible season, and long may that continue. Moving on to potential exits, and according to Metropolitan magazine, Leeds United could be seeing the end of their time connected to Diego Llorente. The publication are saying that Roma are closing in on a £4.3 million permanent move for Llorente to leave Leeds and stay at Rome on a permanent basis. He has been a mainstay of their team most of last season and all of this season, missing out on 1 or 2 games this year because of injuries, but when he's been fit, he's been a mainstay and played 90 minutes pretty much in every game, bar the odd 1 or 2 games where a couple of bad performances and an erratic Jose Mourinho whipping players off at half time, but he has been a mainstay in their team. It would see Leeds, however, lose £14 million on a player that they did pay $18 million for when they brought him in a couple of years ago, but he would remove a very large chunk of Premier League wages from their wage bill, or at least their future wage bill should he come back, so we get it off the books completely and Leeds can focus on other things. According to the publication, they expect this deal to go through in January when the window opens as well. Leeds cutting their losses finally on Diego Llorente and just letting the player move on from that as well. So let me know what you think about that one. We are making a loss, but is it a player that was ever really going to come back to Leeds? If you think about the pace of the Premier League and the Championship, it really didn't seem to suit Diego Llorente's style, whereas Serie A's slightly slower pace seems to be suiting him an awful lot better, and he's a lot more comfortable in that division, and we've seen that with a couple of other players that have left and gone to other divisions. It seems to suit them a little bit better, the slower pace and the less physical nature of football on the continent as opposed to in England. So we'd love to hear people's opinions on Llorente's time at Leeds and him potentially leaving. Moving on, and let's talk about not incoming players, but potential of a brand new head of recruitment who would see some players come back into Leeds United. And Leeds website confirmed back in September a vacancy for a role for a head of recruitment. Leeds have been building up the backroom staff under the 49ers over the past couple of months, moving away from a model that saw Angus Kinnear, Victor Orta and Andre Razzani pretty much make decisions on everything. It's now moving to a stage where Leeds are now putting in proper departments, department heads, and filling out those departments with people to make their decisions easier, a lot more professional, and way more organised than they had been over the last couple of months. It now looks though like Leeds are attempting to persuade Aberdeen Jordan Miles to come down to Leeds as the head of recruitment. Miles was involved with the West Ham recruitment team as well and left them just over a year ago to move up to Aberdeen. He hasn't been there very long and is now expected to come back. According to the Daily Record in Scotland, they claim that the 33-year-old will vacate his role in Aberdeen and come to Leeds. They say that Leeds crave the person to come into this role. They're craving Jordan Miles. Crave's a weird word to use when it's describing somebody coming into a role. Like, I crave chocolate cake. You know, I don't necessarily crave a head of recruitment. But there you go. But they say that it is incredibly likely that Leeds will appoint Jordan Miles as the head of recruitment. He would then join the team and work with Grettir Steinson and Nick Hammond as well as Angus Kinnear in the backroom, so as Leeds continue to bolster that backroom team. If you look at how NFL franchises are run and how 49ers do their business over in America, they have very large departments looking after everything in terms of player development and everything else as well. Huge teams of people in place to make sure that the best is there for the players. And it looks like the 49ers are trying to put that same model in place behind the scenes slowly at Leeds, but just adding people consistently over the course of this year. And there's definitely a lot more people working behind the scenes than there was this time last year. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to see. Should happen probably over the next couple of months. Miles was involved at West Ham. He left them just over a year ago and went to Aberdeen. Is now looking very likely he's going to come back down to Leeds United. So we'll keep an eye on that one and let you know when that's been confirmed. Rattling through this, the January plans apparently have been laid out. Phil Hay from The Athletic has been talking, and he has been saying that Leeds will prioritise key player retention over a large influx of new players in January. That's not to say that Leeds won't do deals in January. Phil does go on to say that Leeds still are expected to do business in January. Angus Kinnear has said Leeds favour the loan market in this month of the year, but that they need to make a permanent sign. There will be funds there for a player should they need to bring someone in on a permanent basis. There was also conversations and talk about players going out on loan, like of Charlie Creswell, Joe Gelhardt, Mateo Joseph. There's a possibility that Mateo Joseph could be knocking on the door for a bench place this weekend, which might see him get some game time for Leeds, which would be great to see. An exciting player that I'd like to see an awful lot more of. But there is expected to be some exits from Leeds in January, and then apparently the main plan for Leeds will be to retain players like Willie Gnonto, like Cree Summerville, like Georginio Rutter, who they expect to have a lot of interest in when they come into that period of time. But as I said, Leeds will look to make some moves in the loan market. There's been players linked, there's been a lot of names mentioned as well over recent weeks. But yeah, it looks like Leeds are very much lining up a handful of potential incoming players, more than likely on loan, but retaining the core group that they've got right now to try and push them into the top flight. If you listen to what Phil Hay said on the podcast and on the Square Ball as well, he talks about the squad that Daniel Farke has got right now. It's quite settled. It's the form side in the Championship. Do you bring any players into that? Can you bring any players into that? If the players that we have on the bench can't get minutes on a regular basis and can't break into that 11, is there any point in bringing somebody else in who could potentially just end up sitting on the bench? We still have the likes of Jed Spence to come back in. Patrick Bamford's not played an awful lot of minutes this year, and he's getting back towards nearly 100% fitness. So he could be an option to play as well, but he isn't as well. And Willie Gnonto, an Italian international, sitting on the bench as well, not getting a huge amount of minutes. So Leeds have some depth in some areas, but Daniel Farke's changes have tended to be the same changes in every game, which would suggest that the remainder of his bench probably isn't as strong as he would like it, and might like to bolster those areas as well. If you look at the likes of Ian Pavetta not getting a massive amount of minutes, Joe Gelhardt not getting a massive amount of minutes, so the number 10 position is probably an area that Leeds will look at. And again, we keep saying it, Leeds will probably need a left back. You know, there's wide speculation on Junior Firpo leaving. We'll talk about that actually really quickly. There is reports coming out of Spain, and Fabrizio Romano has confirmed it this week as well, that Junior Firpo is expected to leave Leeds as soon as possible. What he has said is that basically Betis had to offload their existing left back. That now looks like a deal has been made with AC Milan for I think it's a £1.4 million transfer of that player to go to them, which would then free up that left back position for Betis to possibly bring Junior Firpo in on a loan to buy deal and join Mark Rocket at Betis as well. It's been talked about an awful lot. He's been linked with Betis a huge amount. He has said he wants to stay in Leeds. He has said he's enjoying that at Leeds. He's not playing football. He's blamed the pace of the game and his own personal desire to overperform in training, even though he's been told to calm down and relax. He wants to push himself, and that's caused the injuries that he's had. But it is looking more and more likely that we will see Junior Firpo leave Leeds either this January or in the summer, with Real Betis being the most likely place for him to go as well. So we'll keep an eye on that over the next couple of days and weeks as well. As we get closer to the January window opening, we'll start to see an awful lot more of these things pop up. We've got an action-packed couple of weeks of matches to get our teeth into. A big week for Leeds, 3 huge games this week. If they can come out of this with 9 points, it will put them in a very strong position. 6-7 points as well would be a pretty strong return, given the kind of games we have in this very, very tight short spell of games as well. It's only going to get more competitive coming into the later points of December. So we'll keep an eye on that, and I'll see you back Monday morning for the Leeds United news. Have a great weekend. Fingers crossed for 3 points, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.